everybody, welcome back to the Joshua Generation channel. My name is Joey Sheaf and we are on part 3 of our 4-part series all about overcoming temptation so it doesn't lead to sin. And today's video is all about the uncomfortable subject of lust. Now I know that the subject of lust and everything in it, not a lot of people like to talk about that, especially in the open with other people. But you know what? In order to overcome that temptation so we do not sin anymore, we need to talk about it and we need to find a plan to overcome that temptation. So let's get right down to business.
Let's get down to business
and figure out a plan to defeat the temptation of lust. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at the process that we talked about in the last video where we talked about overcoming the temptation of anger so we don't sin out of anger. And that process is 1, pause and pray, 2, visit the Word, and 3, complete the action steps. So let's look at the first step in this process of overcoming the temptation so we do not sin. So the first step is pausing and praying. Now pause, you're being tempted right now. Satan is getting into your mind that you want to look at something that you do not need to look at or should look at, but you want to. Now, before you do anything, stop and analyze what is going on in your head and what's going on in your heart. And then pray. Ask God to come into your heart and into your mind and take out the thoughts of lust and the temptation to dive into this nasty, nasty world. And then, after you have paused and prayed, the second step is to visit what the Word has to say and understand what it's saying about this specific situation. Matthew 5, verse 28 says, "But I tell you that anyone who looks at a woman lustfully has already committed adultery with her in his heart." Now, I know this verse is specifically looking at a man looking at a woman lustfully. But ladies, I just want to point it out, and I hate to say this, but sometimes y'all are just as guilty at looking at a man lustfully as a man is guilty at looking at a woman lustfully. So instead of playing this gender game and saying, well, men are more deplorable than women or vice versa, how about we just understand that we both deal with this temptation of lust and the sins that come of it and work together to overcome this temptation so that the sin isn't even part of the equation of our lives anymore. Galatians 5:16 says, "So I say, walk by the Spirit, and you will not gratify the desires of the flesh." What I believe this verse in Galatians is saying is that as long as we walk by the Spirit completely and totally, no amount of our flesh will ever need gratifying or satisfying because we are not even paying attention to it, because the Spirit is all we want and all we see. Colossians 3:5 says, "Put to death, therefore, whatever belongs to your earthly nature, sexual immorality, impurity, lust, evil desires, and greed, which is idolatry." Now what Paul is saying, in my opinion, is that we should abandon all physical desires to the point of proverbially putting each and every one of them to death. Now the third step, once we have already paused and prayed and visited the Word and understood what it said, the third step is simply walking away. Now, walking away from the temptation of lust, for some people, including myself, has been and is an extremely, extremely, extremely hard thing to do. But let me give you some ideas that may help in overcoming this temptation. Now, one idea is to simply walk or run away, like we just talked about. I remember hearing something about John Piper, the famous theologian and an apologist, where at work, people would see him running around the building or running outside of the building in his work clothes. Not his workout clothes, but his actual work clothes, and he often wore a suit. And people would come up to him and say, "John, what are you doing? You're running in your work clothes. You're not working out right now. What are you doing?" And John Piper would always tell them, "I'm running away from temptation." See, whenever he was tempted to look at something on the internet, or do something that he wasn't going to be proud of, or that God wasn't going to be proud of, he ran away from it. Simple as that. And yet, if running or walking really isn't your thing, then another idea is to just throw your phone, throw your tablet, shut down the laptop and slide it away from you, shut down your TV and throw the remote out the window. Whatever it takes to get the object of the temptation of lust out of your sight and out of your hands, do it. I often throw my phone away from me. I often set it down on my desk and walk away and go talk to somebody. I often set my phone or whatever is making me being drawn to the temptation of lust. I often set it down, throw it across the room, slide it across the carpet or the floor, and go pray or go talk to somebody. So that the thought of temptation, the thought of going through with the sin is out of my mind and I can go back to what I was doing without being scared of falling into temptation again. Now, there is a fourth and side note step, if you will. I bet you didn't see that coming, to this whole process of overcoming the temptation of lust. And the fourth step is don't let your brothers and sisters go through it alone either. That this battle against temptation, specifically lust, is not one that one can do on his own or on her own. No, this battle against the temptation of lust specifically is something that must be fought together. So instead of building up this barrier of, well, men are more lustful than women or vice versa, why don't we work together and just say we are all human, all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God, all are lustful in their own ways, and let's work together to overcome the temptation of lust and defeat the devil. With that said, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please let me know if you have any comments, concerns, revelations, questions in the comments section below. Like this video if you truly did like it. Don't just like it because I'm telling you, but like it if you truly did like it, and subscribe to the channel for even more video. But that's it for me today, guys. And one more thing before I go. Joshua generation, you know what's coming. You are loved, wanted, and called into greatness by a good, good Father. Bye.